Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. I'm Mayank. 8 months ago, I made a decision that changed my career trajectory. I decided to seriously for senior-level DevOps interviews. Not because I was desperate for a job, but because I wanted clarity on whether I was actually at that level, or just thinking I was. Let me set the context. In 2025, I was working as level DevOps engineer at a startup. I had about 4 years of experience. I was billed as managing Kubernetes director from Stuffed. Here's what I realized. Experience does not equal readiness. You can have 5 years of hands-on work but still fail an interview because you're being asked to articulate your knowledge, to defend your choices, and to problem solve under pressure. But I hadn't been studying DevOps. Big difference. Big difference. In this video, I'm sharing exactly how I started my prep journey. The mindset shifts, the mistakes I made on day one, and the framework that finally got interview ready. If you're considering a senior DevOps role or feel stuck in your position, stick around.
In 2025, I was working as a mid-level DevOps engineer. I had about 7 years of experience. I was managing Kubernetes clusters, building CI/CD pipelines, and honestly, I thought I knew my stuff. But then I had a coffee chat with an engineering director from a Fortune 500 company, and he asked me a simple question. Walk me through how you design a multi-region Kubernetes deployment with disaster recovery. I started talking, and I could feel myself fumbling. I knew the tools, I'd used them, but I didn't know the principles. I didn't have a framework. And that conversation lasted 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. I walked away thinking, I'm not ready for the next level, not even close. That was my wake-up call.
Here's what I realized. Experience does not equal readiness. You can have 5 years of hands-on work but still fail an interview because you're being asked to articulate your knowledge, to defend your choices, and to problem solve under pressure.
I'd been doing DevOps work, but I hadn't been studying DevOps. Big difference.
So in late 2025, I made the commitment. I'm going to prep for senior-level interviews the right way. Not haphazardly, not I'll just wing it, but systematically, with a clear framework.
I had to accept that using something and understanding something are completely different. I could deploy applications to Kubernetes, but could I explain the internals of the scheduler? Could I defend my resource requests? Could I troubleshoot a crash loop backoff without Googling? Honestly, no. So I had to flip my thinking. Instead of I use Docker, I started asking, how does Docker actually work? What are the kernel namespaces? Why does it exist? This simple reframe changed everything. It moved me from surface-level knowledge to foundational understanding. Shift 2. From breadth over depth to strategic depth. My second realization. I was a generalist trying to be an expert. I knew a little about Kubernetes, a little about AWS, a little about Terraform, a little about CI/CD. I was a mile wide and an inch deep, and that works great for a mid-level role where you're wearing many hats. But for a senior role, they expect depth. So I had to make a hard choice. What are my core 3-4 pillars? What am I going to own? For me, it was Kubernetes and container orchestration. Infrastructure as code, Terraform, CloudFormation, CI/CD pipeline design and optimization, cloud architecture, AWS specifically. I wasn't going to ignore other areas, but these were my true specialties. These are the areas where I have production experience and can speak with authority. This strategic focus was liberating because it told me exactly what to study. I wasn't trying to learn everything. I was deepening what I already knew. Shift 3, from theory is optional to theory is foundation. Here's the uncomfortable truth. I'd been doing DevOps without truly understanding the theory. I never read about container runtimes. I never learned about the Linux kernel deeply. I never studied the CAP theorem or distributed systems theory. I just used the tools that worked. But in an interview, especially at senior level, they dig deeper. They ask why. And because it works isn't an answer. So I had to embrace the theory, not just the practical how to use X tool, but the why X tool exists and what problems it solves and what are the trade-offs.
This wasn't about memorizing textbooks, it was about building mental models. Why does Kubernetes exist? Because you need orchestration at scale. What problems does it solve? Deployment, resource management, self-healing. What are its limitations? It adds complexity, requires careful design, etc.
Assessment. Honest self-evaluation. Before I started preparing, I did a brutally honest assessment. I spent a weekend writing down what I'm confident about. These are areas where I've solved production problems, made architectural decisions, and can speak with authority. For me, Kubernetes deployments, ECS orchestration, basic Terraform patterns. What I'm familiar with but not confident. These are areas where I've used the tool but haven't deeply understood the why. For me, advanced Terraform modules, cost optimization, disaster recovery patterns. What I don't know, these are the blind spots, areas I haven't touched or barely understand. For me, service mesh architectures, advanced networking in Kubernetes, security compliance frameworks. This assessment was humbling. The don't know section was way longer than I expected, but it was also liberating because I knew exactly where to focus.
I then asked myself, what's the gap between where I am and where I need to be to pass a senior DevOps interview at a top-tier company?
The answer, probably 6 to 8 months of focused, dedicated study. That felt daunting, but I also knew I couldn't wait anymore. Every month I didn't prep, I was getting older, and opportunities were getting tighter. So I made the commitment right then. I'm doing this for 6 months, come what may. Mistake 1, trying to learn everything at once. My first week was chaos. I tried to do everything. Started a course on Kubernetes, bought a book on DevOps practices, joined an interview prep group, started solving leak code problems, and began reading every cloud architecture white paper. Within 3 days, I was overwhelmed. I was studying 4 hours a day, but retaining almost nothing because my brain was switching contexts constantly.
I realized the problem isn't lack of effort. The problem is lack of focus.
Mistake 2, not having a real schedule. I said I'll study whenever I have time. Guess what? I never had time. There's always something else. Your boss needs a quick fix, a production issue happens. You're tired when you get home. I learned that whenever I have time is code for never. I needed to schedule my study time like it was a meeting with a CEO, non-negotiable. Mistake 3, not connecting theory to practice. I was reading about Kubernetes scheduler design, but I wasn't applying it. I wasn't asking, how does this affect my day-to-day work? What would I do differently with this knowledge?
Learning theory without practice is like reading a cookbook but never cooking. You might understand the ingredients,
but you can't make the meal. In week 2, I had a chat with a mentor who's interviewed at Google and Amazon. He told me something I'll never forget. You don't need to know everything. You need to know your stuff deeply and everything else at a sufficient level. That one sentence changed my entire approach. So, I built a framework with 3 tiers. Tier 1, deep knowledge, your core pillars. These are areas where you should be able to explain the mechanics from first principles, defend architectural decisions, discuss trade-offs and limitations, solve real problems. For me, Kubernetes, infrastructure as code, CI/CD. Tier 2, solid understanding, adjacent areas. These are areas where you need clear mental models, ability to make informed decisions, enough depth to discuss intelligently. For me, cloud architecture, monitoring, security basics. Tier 3, awareness everything else. These are areas where you need awareness that the solution exists, understanding of use cases, ability to learn quickly if needed. For me, service mesh, advanced networking, specialized databases. This framework meant I could study strategically. I wasn't trying to become an expert in everything. I was allocating my limited time based on impact. Starting the real prep. With this framework in mind, I started my preparation in a structured way. Month 1, Foundations. Deep dive into Linux and container basics. Kubernetes architecture from scratch. Understanding distributed systems concepts. Months 2 to 3, Core skills. Advanced Kubernetes patterns. Terraform and IAC best practices. Cloud architecture, AWS. Months 4 to 5, Real interview prep. System design problems, behavioral preparation, mock interviews. Month 6, Buffer and polish. Weak areas revisited, final full mocks, sleep and sanity. This timeline made it feel achievable. It wasn't prep forever. It was 6 months, structured and clear. What I committed to. Here's what I actually committed to. Not in words, but in actions. Study every weekday, 90 minutes minimum, 6 a.m. before work, or 9 p.m. after. No exceptions unless traveling. No distractions during study time. Phone on silent, no email, no Slack. Just focused work. Every concept I studied, I applied at work or in a personal project. I used a simple spreadsheet. Topic, status, not started, in progress, solid, expert, date. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Mock interviews, harder problems, tougher questions, seeking discomfort instead of avoiding it. Let me be real. This was hard. For 6 months, my life had a different priority. It was temporary, but it was real. And honestly, I don't regret it. Because I didn't just prep for interviews, I became genuinely better at my craft. That's worth the sacrifice. So that's how I started. In the next video,
I'm breaking down exactly how I planned my study topics, the framework I used to decide what to learn and in what order.
it's the backbone of the whole prep journey. If you're thinking about leveling up your DevOps career, or if you're stuck and need a kick in the behind, this series is for you. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And drop a comment. What's been your biggest barrier to senior level interview prep? Is it time, Is it which topics to focus on? Is it confidence? Let me know. I read every comment. Alright, thanks for watching. See you in the next video.